The notification came at 0300 hours, piercing through Maya Chen's sleep like a blade through silk. She blinked at the holographic display hovering above her bunk, reading the message 3 times before the reality of it sank into her bones. The Galactic Academy Tournament.
10 champions. 1 human slot.
Her name, glowing in cold blue letters. "You have got to be kidding me," she whispered into the darkness of her quarters, her voice carrying that particular edge of disbelief reserved for monumentally bad news delivered at supremely terrible times. The Academy, the gleaming monument to interspecies cooperation floating in the Andromeda sector, had decided in its infinite wisdom to host a combat tournament. Not just any tournament, mind you, but one designed to showcase the peak warriors of every member species. The Kryn, with their 4 arms and reflexes faster than thought itself. The Voltari, whose crystalline bodies could withstand plasma fire. The Hegemon, 7 feet of pure muscle and tactical genius. And 9 others, each one a legend in their own right. And then there was Maya. 5'6". Human. Armed with nothing but spite, stubbornness, and a training regimen that most of her instructors called excessive. She called it preparation. The gymnasium smelled like ozone and ambition when Maya arrived 6 hours later, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder, her expression carefully neutral. The other champions were already there, naturally. They stood in loose clusters, their attention focused on various training equipment, their conversations pitched low and confident. They looked like gods among mortals, each one radiating the particular arrogance that came from being the absolute best at something.
Maya hated them on sight. Not personally, of course. Professionally.
"Ah, the human arrives," a voice rumbled from her left, deep enough to vibrate in her chest cavity. She turned to find Kross, the Hegemon champion, staring down at her with eyes like molten gold. His skin was the color of burnished copper, his frame blocking out half the overhead lights. "I had heard the Academy extended an invitation to your kind. Tell me, small one, do you understand what this tournament represents?" "Enlighten me," Maya said, her tone flat as dead space, her eyes meeting his without flinching. She had learned early in her academy career that the moment you showed weakness, you became prey. Better to be the predator, even when outmatched. Kross laughed, the sound like rocks grinding together. "This is not some training exercise, human. This is combat at the highest level. Warriors have died in previous tournaments. Your species, from what I understand, are fragile creatures.
Soft. Breakable."
"Funny," Maya replied, dropping her bag at her feet with a deliberate thud. "That's exactly what the last 3 species said before humans started colonizing their abandoned war zones. Turns out, soft doesn't mean weak. It just means we had to get creative." The Hegemon's expression shifted, something like respect flickering behind those golden eyes before he turned away, dismissing her with the casual cruelty of someone who had already written her off as irrelevant.
Good, Maya thought.
Let them underestimate her. Let them think she was just another fragile human who had gotten lucky with an invitation. She would show them exactly how dangerous underestimation could be. The tournament coordinator was a Sylvani named Oren, their form constantly shifting between states of matter, liquid one moment and gas the next. They addressed the assembled champions with a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, explaining the rules with bureaucratic efficiency.
10 champions. 10 rounds.
Each fighter would face the others in single combat. Points awarded for victories. The champion with the most points at the end would claim the title of Academy Victor, along with all the prestige, opportunities, and political capital that came with it.
Simple, brutal, elegant.
The first match, Oren announced, their form solidifying into something almost humanoid, will begin in 2 hours. Kross of the Hegemon will face Maya Chen of Earth. Of course, Maya thought, feeling something cold and sharp settle in her stomach. Of course they would throw her against the biggest, meanest fighter first.
Sink or swim.
Trial by fire. Every cliché in the book applied here, and all of them ended with her getting crushed into paste by 7 feet of muscle and tactical superiority. Except she had no intention of playing by their expectations. The preparation chamber was quiet, sterile, designed to give fighters space to center themselves before combat. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and measured. She could hear her heartbeat, steady as a metronome, and beneath that, the whisper of memory. Training sessions that lasted until her muscles screamed. Sparring matches where she had been thrown, broken, rebuilt. Her instructor, a grizzled veteran named Marcus Stone, leaning close and saying, "Size is an advantage until it becomes a liability. Speed is power until someone faster appears. The only true weapon is adaptability, kid. Remember that." She remembered.
God, did she remember?
The arena was massive, a circular space surrounded by energy barriers and observation decks packed with students, faculty, and representatives from every major species in the galaxy. The noise hit Maya like a physical force when she stepped onto the combat floor, thousands of voices merging into a single roar of anticipation. Above, holographic displays showed her face next to Kross's, the size difference almost comical. Kross entered from the opposite side, moving with the confident stride of someone who had never lost a fight that mattered. His armor was minimal, just enough to satisfy tournament regulations, leaving most of his copper-colored skin exposed. He carried no weapons. He did not need them. Maya, by contrast, wore lightweight combat gear designed for mobility, her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid, her hands wrapped in impact-absorbing tape.
She looked tiny compared to him. Insignificant. An afterthought. She smiled. Sharp. Predatory.
Ready positions, Oren's voice echoed through the arena, their form hovering above the combat floor like a ghostly referee. Kross dropped into a fighting stance, his massive hands raised, his weight perfectly distributed. He looked like a mountain preparing to crush an insect. Maya stayed loose, her hands at her sides, her posture almost casual. She could see the confusion flicker across Kross's face, quickly replaced by something darker.
Contempt, maybe. Pity. Begin.
Kross moved first, closing the distance between them with shocking speed for someone his size. His first strike came in fast, a straight punch aimed at Maya's center mass with enough force to shatter ribs. She was not there when it landed. She had already shifted left, her body moving on instinct honed through countless hours of drilling, and his fist met empty air with a sound like thunder. His second strike came faster, a backhand that would have taken her head clean off her shoulders. Maya ducked under it, feeling the wind of its passage ruffle her hair, and drove her fist into his exposed ribs with surgical precision. The impact sent a jolt up her arm, and she danced back before he could retaliate, her breathing steady, her mind calculating angles and distances with mechanical efficiency. Kross growled, the sound resonating through the arena, and adjusted his approach.
Faster now. More aggressive.
He came at her like an avalanche, all momentum and unstoppable force, each strike powerful enough to end the fight if it connected. None of them connected. Maya moved like water, flowing around his attacks, using his size and strength against him. Every time he committed to a strike, she was elsewhere, her smaller frame allowing her to slip through gaps that would not exist for larger fighters. And every time she evaded, she struck back. Quick jabs to joints and pressure points. Kicks to destabilize his balance. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. Just relentless, calculated damage. The crowd's roar changed pitch, confusion bleeding into shock. This was not how the fight was supposed to go. The human was supposed to be overwhelmed, crushed, defeated in minutes. Instead, she was making Kross, the legendary Hegemon champion, look slow.
Clumsy. Frustrated. Stand still.
Kross roared, his composure cracking like ice under pressure. He lunged forward, abandoning technique in favor of raw aggression, his hands reaching for her with desperate hunger. Maya waited until the last possible moment, then dropped low, sweeping his legs out from under him with a move that was pure street fighting pragmatism. 7 feet of muscle and bone hit the arena floor with a crash that shook the energy barriers, and before he could recover, Maya was on him, her knee pressed against his throat, her hand poised to strike at his temple. "Yield," she said quietly, her voice carrying just far enough for him to hear.
Not a question. A command.
Kross stared up at her, gold eyes wide with disbelief, his chest heaving. For a moment, she thought he might refuse, might force her to actually finish the fight. Then, slowly, deliberately, he tapped the floor twice with his palm. The universal signal of surrender. The arena went silent. Absolutely, utterly silent. Oren's voice cut through the stillness like a knife.
Victory. Maya Chen.
The noise that followed was deafening, a mixture of cheers, protests, and stunned exclamations in a dozen different languages. Maya stood slowly, offering Kross her hand. He took it after a moment's hesitation, letting her help him to his feet despite the absurdity of her size compared to his. "How?" he asked simply, his pride bleeding out through that single word. Maya smiled, tired but genuine. "I told you. Soft does not mean weak. It means we adapt." She walked off the arena floor to a cacophony of voices, her body already cataloging the aches and pains that would bloom into bruises by morning.
9 more fights. 9 more champions.
Each one would be different, each one would require new strategies, new adaptations. But she had just beaten the Hegemon champion. The fighter everyone had pegged as the tournament favorite. And she had done it not through superior strength or speed, but through the one thing humans had always excelled at. Refusing to accept that anything was impossible. In the observation deck, pressed against the viewing glass, a thin Kryn warrior named Zarek watched the human disappear into the preparation chambers. His forearms crossed over his chest, his compound eyes reflecting a dozen different angles of the arena floor below. Interesting, he murmured to himself, his mandibles clicking together in a gesture that might have been anticipation or concern. Very interesting indeed. The tournament had only just begun, and already, the human had shattered every expectation. The question now was not whether she could win. The question was whether anyone could stop her. Word spread through the academy like wildfire through dry grass, fast and hungry and impossible to contain. The human had beaten Kross. Maya Chen, the fragile Earth girl, had made the Hegemon champion tap out in front of half the galaxy. By the time Maya emerged from the medical bay, cleared for her next match, the entire station seemed to be buzzing with speculation, analysis, and no small amount of betting. She found the attention exhausting. 63 messages, her personal display informed her helpfully as she walked through the residential corridors. 12 interview requests. 7 formal challenges. 1 marriage proposal. Delete them all, Maya said without breaking stride. She had no interest in becoming a celebrity. She was here to fight, to win, and to prove that humanity belonged in the same arena as species that could breathe vacuum or regenerate lost limbs. Her second match was against Vara, a silicate whose body was composed of living glass. Beautiful, deadly, and nearly indestructible. The conventional wisdom said that fighting Vara was like trying to punch a diamond, futile and painful in equal measure. Maya had watched footage of her previous fights, analyzed her movements, identified her patterns. Conventional wisdom, she had learned, was usually wrong. The arena was even more packed for the second bout, standing room only, every species representative jockeying for position. They wanted to see if the first victory had been a fluke, if the human could repeat her performance, if she truly belonged among champions. Maya stepped onto the combat floor to a mixture of cheers and skeptical silence. Vara was already waiting, her crystalline form refracting the arena lights into rainbow patterns across the floor. She moved with grace that seemed impossible for something made of solid matter, each step precise and calculated. "I have studied your previous fight," Vara said, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "You rely on speed and precision.
Against Kross, this was sufficient.
Against me, it will not be enough. My body does not yield to impacts. Your strategy is flawed." Maya stretched her shoulders, rolling her neck until it popped satisfactorily. "You know what I love about assumptions? They make excellent kindling." The fight began with Vara charging forward, her movements fluid despite her composition, her arms extending to strike with edges sharp enough to cut through steel. Maya dodged the first swipe, felt the second whistle past her cheek close enough to draw a thin line of blood, and realized immediately that direct confrontation was suicide.
So she did not confront. She ran.
Not in retreat, but in circles, forcing Vara to constantly adjust her position, burning energy tracking a target that refused to stay still. Every few seconds, Maya would dart in, test Vara's defenses with quick strikes that did no damage but gathered information, then retreat before the Silicate could counter effectively. "Coward!" someone shouted from the crowd. Maya ignored them. Cowardice and strategy looked identical to people who did not understand combat. Vara grew frustrated, her attacks becoming more aggressive, less controlled.
Perfect.
Maya waited for the right moment, the instant when Vara overextended on a strike, then pivoted sharply and kicked at the Silicate's knee joint with every ounce of force she could generate. The impact sent a shock wave through Vara's entire body, and for the first time, Maya saw something like surprise flicker across that crystalline face. The joint had not broken, but it had fractured, hairline cracks spreading through the glass like lightning across a frozen lake. "Impossible," Vara breathed, staring down at her damaged leg. "Your strength is insufficient to cause this damage." "You are right," Maya agreed, breathing hard, sweat dripping down her face. "My strength alone could not do it. But force equals mass times acceleration. And I am very, very fast." She struck again before Vara could fully process the implications, targeting the same fracture, widening it with brutal efficiency. The Silicate tried to defend, tried to adapt, but the damage was done. Her mobility compromised, her balance off, she became predictable.
Easy to read. Easy to counter.
The fight ended with Vara on one knee, unable to continue, her leg too damaged to support her weight. Maya stood over her, chest heaving, knuckles bleeding where they had split against crystalline skin.
"Yield?"
Maya asked softly. Vara nodded, the movement sending fractures spreading further through her form.
"Yield.
You fight without honor, human."
"I fight to win," Maya corrected.
"Honor is for people who can afford it." Victory number 2.
8 more to go.
The matches blurred together after that, each one a new puzzle to solve, a new opponent to decode. Zarek, the Kryn speed demon, who moved faster than Maya could track with her eyes but telegraphed his attacks through subtle shifts in his stance. She beat him by predicting rather than reacting, placing herself where he was going to be and striking first. Thane, the Voltari energy manipulator, who could discharge plasma hot enough to melt armor. She beat him by staying close, too close for him to use his ranged attacks, forcing him into hand-to-hand combat where his inexperience showed. Rook, the Nexian strategist, who thought 12 steps ahead and never made the same mistake twice. She beat him by abandoning strategy entirely, becoming chaotic and unpredictable, a variable his calculating mind could not account for. 5 victories. 5 different approaches. 5 champions who had underestimated the human girl and paid the price. The academy was no longer buzzing with speculation. It was roaring with certainty. Maya Chen was not a fluke. She was not lucky. She was dangerous, skilled, and absolutely determined to win this tournament regardless of what the galaxy thought about her chances. In the shadows of the observation deck, a figure watched her latest victory with an expression that might have been respect or concern or both. Commander Yrel, head of Academy Security, a Drac whose scales shimmered like oil on water. He had seen countless fighters pass through these halls, had watched tournaments come and go, but he had never seen anything quite like this. She fights like someone with nothing to lose, he murmured to his second-in-command, a human named Carter who had served in 3 different war zones before joining Academy staff. Carter nodded slowly, his scarred face thoughtful. That is because she does not. Every human who comes to this academy carries the weight of their entire species on their shoulders. We are the newcomers, the primitives, the ones who barely qualify for membership. Every fight she wins is proof that we belong here. Every loss would be confirmation that we do not. That kind of pressure either breaks you or forges you into something extraordinary. And which is she?
Yrel asked.
Carter smiled, sharp and proud.
Extraordinary. Obviously.
Match 6 brought Maya against a Feln warrior named Cisco, who used psionic abilities to disorient opponents, making them see things that were not there, hear things that did not exist. It should have been an unwinnable fight. Maya entered the arena knowing that her senses would betray her, that reality itself would become negotiable. She closed her eyes and fought blind. The crowd gasped as she moved through the arena floor like a ghost, dodging attacks she should not have been able to see, striking at locations she should not have been able to find. Cisco's psionic assault was useless against someone who simply did not rely on their eyes. Maya fought by sound, by feel, by the displacement of air and the subtle vibrations through the floor.
She won in 4 minutes flat.
Match 7 was against Horrocks, a Titan-class fighter whose skin was so dense that conventional weapons bounced off harmlessly. Maya spent the entire fight targeting pressure points, nerve clusters, the soft tissue around joints where even the toughest armor had to flex. She made him feel every strike, accumulating damage that did not show but that ground him down until he could not continue. Match 8 brought her face-to-face with Lena, a pyre who could superheat the air around her, turning the arena into an oven. Maya soaked her combat gear in water before the fight, bought herself precious minutes of comfort while she closed the distance and struck at Lena's cooling vents, the biological structures that kept her internal temperature from cooking her alive. Without proper heat distribution, Lena overheated and collapsed within minutes.
8 victories. 2 more to go.
The 9th match was different. Her opponent was Kale, a wraith who could phase through solid matter, making himself intangible at will. He was young, cocky, and absolutely convinced that his ability made him untouchable. Maya let him believe it right up until the moment she threw a handful of conductive dust into the air, activated an electromagnetic pulse generator she had borrowed from the engineering department, and disrupted his phasing ability mid-dodge.
He became solid. She became inevitable.
The victory was quick, brutal, and sent a clear message to everyone watching. Maya Chen did not just adapt to her opponents. She studied them, prepared for them, exploited every weakness with the ruthless efficiency of someone who understood that mercy was a luxury she could not afford.
10 victories. 1 left. The final fight.
The arena was packed beyond capacity when Maya entered for the last time, security having to turn away hundreds of beings who had traveled from across the sector just to witness the conclusion of the tournament. The human girl who had defied expectations, shattered predictions, and beaten 9 champions in a row was about to face her final test. Her opponent stood waiting on the opposite side of the combat floor. Commander Yrel himself.
The Drac champion.
The fighter who had won the previous 3 tournaments without losing a single match. He had not been on the original roster. He had volunteered for this fight. Maya Chen, he said, his voice carrying across the arena with serpentine grace. You have proven yourself a remarkable warrior. Resourceful, adaptable, relentless. But I am afraid your journey ends here. I have studied every fight you have had in this tournament. I know your patterns, your strategies, your limits. You cannot surprise me. Maya stared at him, this legendary fighter who had just admitted to analyzing her every move, and felt something bubble up in her chest. Laughter. Inappropriate, exhausted, slightly hysterical laughter. You know what is funny? She asked, her voice carrying to every corner of the arena. Everyone keeps saying they have studied me, analyzed me, figured me out. And every single one of them has ended up flat on their back, confused about how they lost. You want to know the secret? You want to know why none of you can explain my victories? She stepped forward, her hands loose at her sides, her expression fierce and tired and absolutely done with alien arrogance. It is because you are all looking for some technique, some special ability, some genetic advantage that explains how a human can beat champions from species that are faster, stronger, tougher than we are. But there is no secret technique. There is no special ability. There is just this.
She tapped her temple.
Humans do not win because we are the best at anything. We win because we refuse to accept that being outmatched means being beaten. Every fight I have had in this tournament, I was supposed to lose. Every opponent had advantages I could not match through physical ability alone. So I found other ways. I adapted. I improvised. I did whatever it took to win because losing was not acceptable. She paused, letting her words sink in, then smiled.
Sharp. Dangerous. Human.
You want to know my limit, Commander?
I do not have one.
Because the moment you tell a human something is impossible, we make it our personal mission to prove you wrong.
The fight began.
Yrel moved like liquid shadow, his Drac physiology giving him flexibility that bordered on disturbing, his scales deflecting strikes that should have landed. He was faster than Kross, more strategic than Rook, more adaptable than any opponent she had faced. He was, quite simply, the best fighter in the academy. Maya fought him anyway. She took hits that would have ended previous fights, adapted to his patterns even as he adapted to hers, pushed herself beyond exhaustion into that strange clarity that came from having nothing left to lose. The fight lasted 23 minutes, an eternity in combat terms, both fighters refusing to yield, refusing to break, locked in a battle that transcended species or technique or advantage. In the end, it came down to one moment. One opening. One strike. Maya saw it, seized it, and drove her fist into the nerve cluster at the base of Yrel's spine with every remaining ounce of strength she possessed. His legs gave out. He dropped to one knee, paralyzed from the waist down for the crucial seconds it took for Maya to secure the submission hold. Yield, she gasped, barely able to speak through her exhaustion. Yrel tapped the floor. Once. Twice. The arena exploded. Maya released the hold and collapsed onto her back, staring up at the ceiling, her body one giant bruise, her lungs burning, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. She had won. Against all odds, against every expectation, against the best fighter in the academy. She had won. Yrel recovered mobility after a few moments, rubbing feeling back into his legs, and offered Maya his hand. She took it, letting him pull her to her feet, and found herself face to face with the Drac commander. You were right, he said quietly, his voice pitched for her ears alone. I cannot explain your victory. And I find that I do not need to. Some things defy explanation. They simply are. The award ceremony was a blur of speeches and presentations, dignitaries from 100 worlds offering congratulations, academy officials falling over themselves to praise the tournament's success. Maya accepted the trophy, a crystalline sculpture that represented excellence in combat, and stood before the assembled crowd with dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, and exhaustion in every line of her body. Thank you, she said simply, her voice amplified across the arena. To everyone who doubted me, thank you for the motivation. To everyone who believed in me, thank you for the support. And to all the humans watching this broadcast, remember this. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We are not the most advanced. But we are here, we are competing, and we are winning. Never let anyone tell you that you do not belong somewhere. Prove them wrong instead. The crowd roared its approval, species boundaries forgotten in the shared appreciation of a warrior who had earned her place through blood, sweat, and absolute determination. Later, much later, when the ceremonies had ended and the crowds had dispersed, Maya sat alone in the now empty arena, staring at the trophy in her hands. Carter found her there, sitting cross-legged on the combat floor, her expression distant. You did it, he said, sitting beside her without asking permission. You actually did it. 10 champions. 10 victories. They are going to write entire tactical manuals about your fights. They are going to tear apart every decision I made, Maya corrected, but she was smiling. Second guess every strategy. Debate whether my victories were skill or luck.
Let them debate, Carter said. You know the truth.
You won because you are human, and humans are too stubborn to know when they are beaten. Maya laughed, the sound echoing through the empty arena. Is that what they will say? That I won through stubbornness?
Among other things. But mostly that.
And honestly.
Carter grinned.
I cannot think of a better explanation. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, two humans in a galaxy that had not quite figured out what to do with their species, surrounded by the ghosts of impossible victories.
What now?
Carter asked eventually. Maya stood, tucking the trophy under her arm, her body protesting every movement. Now I find the nearest hot shower, sleep for about 3 days straight, and then probably fight 10 more champions just to prove this was not a fluke. That is the most human thing I have ever heard. Good, Maya said, heading toward the exit. We have a reputation to maintain. Behind her, the arena lights dimmed one by one, darkness reclaiming the space where a human girl had faced 10 alien champions and won. Not through superior strength or speed or ability, but through the one trait that defined humanity above all others. The absolute, unshakable refusal to give up. And somewhere in the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, young beings watched recordings of the tournament, saw what Maya-chan had accomplished, and began to wonder. If a human could do the impossible, what could they achieve? The answer, as it turned out, was anything they were willing to fight for. Subscribe and like to my channel for more sci-fi stories.